I've been dating my girlfriend for 3 years now. I'll nickname her Nikki. It started innocently enough that I commented on one of her Instagram stories, and we started chatting from there. Eventually, I got her number and then Snapchat. And after a week, we met in person. We started hanging out right after the holidays in January, and the thought of Valentine's Day was all already coming up. It was nice having started talking to a girl around that time, so that I wouldn't feel the dread of being alone on that annoying holiday. But as Valentine's Day approached, and Nikki and I were a few dates in, she confided in me about a stalker situation she'd been dealing with. The man's name is Ben, and he's a guy a few years older than Nikki, who happened to go to the same commuter college as her, met her in class for a group projects, and followed her around campus a few times. She never involved police or anything. Shockingly, hearing that this guy found out where she lived, sent her a bunch of creepy texts, which she ignored. She said she never blocked the number because she wanted to see how far he would go without getting the hints. When I gauged why she was choosing now to bring this to my attention, she said because he started reaching out to her again, specifically for Valentine's Day. As you can see here, he started ramping up the texting again. As Valentine's Day approached, she continued to just ignore it and let the texts pile up, but he brought it to the next level. When he left a box of Russell Stover chocolates on her doorstep, she knew it was from him, because he texted her, "I hope you like the gift I left you." This was when she decided to put an end to it and replied to him a long message, which I won't share for her privacy, but in short, she said he needs help and that she's seeing someone now. So to leave her alone, there are a number of ways to get someone's address this day and age. But she was scared that he got it by following her home one day. I did my best to make sure that she knew I wouldn't let him do anything to her. Well, fast forward maybe a few days, and Nikki sent me a concerning screenshot. It was a screenshot of some text from a fake number, asking if the guy she was seeing was me. As in, he wrote my name. Now I felt involved, and that made me feel moderately uncomfortable. To this point, all I've heard of this guy was that he was a very creepy and overly persistent texter and potentially followed the girl I'm seeing home to her house. And now he's texting her on fake numbers, bringing up my name. It was reaching the point where Nikki was close to calling the police if this didn't stop. I told her I'd go to the police station with her. If you reached out one more time, fast forward to Valentine's Day, it was on a Friday this year. Nikki and I went out to eat at a nice restaurant that sat on the water. We were at an outside table because the weather was nice as we ate. We both took notice to a guy sitting on a bench outside of the dining area by the parking lot with a hat conspicuously pulled down his face as if he were hiding. Nikki made a joke. "What if that's Ben?" We laughed, but then he slightly tilted his head in our direction as we were looking at him, and then he quickly looked away, and seconds later he got up and walked away. We weren't laughing anymore now. We actually questioned the chances of that actually being him. But after a few minutes, the conversation shifted to something else, and we enjoyed the rest of our time there afterwards. We wanted to keep hanging out. It was Valentine's Day after all, but her parents were home. I had the place to myself, so we went together back to my rental house. We were on the couch, and things were getting a bit more intimate. That's when Nikki pulled away from me and said, "What was that?" I heard it too, something from outside in the backyard. "Want me to go check?" I asked. She nodded her head. I went out to the backyard patio, expecting to hear some animals scurrying off in reaction to my presence. I slipped on my slides and walked around the yard looking around for anything that could have fallen over. And I found what made the noise. The entire stack of beach chairs that was leaning on the house had been knocked over. I don't know how that would happen unless someone or something bumped into them. There wasn't even the slightest breeze that night. I looked around at the bushes that encompassed our yard. And then, as if my brain immediately could spot something out of place, I locked in my vision on something tall in the bushes. My neck jutted forward as I literally tried to focus in and get a better look at what I was looking at. I stepped forward a few steps. I had an oh moment when I realized it was someone standing in the bushes. He had seen me notice him by this point. I said, "Who is that?" The guy started quickly coming out from the bushes in a quick enough speed that I took it as a threat, as if he were about to charge at me. I took the chance to get him on the ground when he was still struggling with the bushes and twigs, and I yelled at him to stay down multiple times. I yelled Nikki's name until she came outside, and I said, "Call the police." The guy on the ground struggled and tried to get loose a few times, but I more or less had him in a steady hold when Nikki came outside while talking with the police. I asked her if this was the guy. She gasped and said, "Oh my God, yes, it was the Ben guy who had been harassing her." What's worse is at that moment I realized he was wearing the same colored shirt. That guy with the cap from earlier at the restaurant was wearing police. Got to the house and put him in cuffs. He would be charged with trespassing and taking advantage of the moment. Nikki showed the officers all of the harassing and obsessive messages she'd been receiving from him since he was already being arrested. The man was fined and given a misdemeanor after Nikki filed accusations of harassment and stalking. She also obtained an order of protection against him, so he would face further arrest if he approaches her. Thank goodness Ben is half as clever as he seems to be, else he would never have approached her again. This occurred 4 years ago. Valentine's Day was coming up, my boyfriend, and I had planned a cute dinner like what most couples do as we were walking into the restaurant. There's this couple outside weirdly staring at my boyfriend, and I slightly shove my boyfriend's arm as we get inside, and he gives out his name to be put in the wait line. The host said it would be a 45-minute wait, and she said she would text us when our table was ready. My boyfriend said, "Let's go to the mini golf across the street." So we're walking back to his car. The lady from the couple stood up and held up her hand, introducing herself as Mrs. Greddy. I found it really weird and looked at my boyfriend. The lady still had her hand out. I wasn't trying to be rude, I gave her a shake. The lady went on to explain that her and her husband think we're a great-looking couple, and they're photographers, and think we would make great photos, and to follow them to the studio. As she believes the wait time will be long. She goes on to say that she has no card on her, but their place was a 5-minute drive away, and they could take us there as well. Red flags are going off, and my boyfriend politely declines and lets her know we have things to do. The look was still one of the most haunting looks ever, as she smiled and sat down next to the husband as we get in the car. I tell my boyfriend how creepy that interaction was, and how the husband didn't even say a word as we enter the mini golf place. We were pretty surprised to find it empty. We laugh. The situation is off. But I'm still scared since the house isn't very big. From any floor, you can see the main door. So, while we're in the midst of our 6th round, I hear the entry bell ring and my stomach drops. She looks around, then gives me the creepiest grin as we establish eye contact. It's the same woman with her husband. I inform my partner, who then turns to watch them as they get ready. I explain that I'm uneasy and that we should wait in the vehicle because 15 minutes have gone by, so it won't be long. He agrees, and we move around to see them, giving us the broadest. The spouse suggested we go head-to-head, and my boyfriend's heart fell at the thought. His last name is Rods, as he grinned and added, "It's crazy how we both came to this spot." We politely declined, not wanting to know how they knew that information, and we said we have to go. Both of their smiles faded as we rushed out of there. I told my boyfriend we should just call it a night and go back to his place, since it was closer than mine. Plus, my parents wouldn't be home until Sunday morning. He said we would go after dinner and not let some random weird couple ruin the night for us. We waited about 15 minutes in his car talking about how weird the situation was as he gets a text from the restaurant saying they're ready for us. We eat dinner. And he insists I'm paying today since it's Valentine's Day, as we usually split the bill. He goes to the bathroom, and as I'm waiting, I thought, I saw that lady peeking out from around a corner. I convinced myself it was just in my head. My boyfriend gets out and is ready to go now, to get to his place. You have to take this long road surrounded by trees. As we start the drive, we notice a car following behind. I let my husband know, and we head into a CVS parking lot. I have to use the restroom, and since it was going to be a drive, we both get out and go. When we come out, we don't see that car that was potentially following us anywhere, so we make our way to his house. You know that road I talked about earlier being surrounded by trees? Well, while we're driving on it, we're like 3 to 5 minutes onto this road, we heard a loud pop.